Hello and welcome to another episode of I'm Still Playing. So after surviving the Great Migration from Dallas to Denver, I traded the heat stroke for hypoxia. I am finally set back up and behind the microphone. I want to say this is the first episode I've recorded since the move, so if I do sound slightly winded, it's probably the mountain air, or I don't know, the emotional trauma of being surrounded by boxes I've yet to unpack. In this episode, we're going to be diving into the 2.4 story update of Wuthering Waves. This is the patch that delivered plenty of drama, some interesting variations to combat, and honestly a party mechanic that I'm not too much of a fan of. So grab a box to sit on and let's get started. Okay, so first of all, spoiler warnings. If you haven't played to the 2.4 story update yet, you might want to pause here and go catch up on the plot, and then come back. I mean, unless you're one of those chaos goblins who enjoy spoilers, in which case you're welcome. You're among friends. Now, you should know I'm not going to recap the story per se. There are plenty of other videos out there in Reddit threads that can do just exactly that for you. What I do want to talk about is sort of the parts that I thought missed, the parts that I thought hit, and some of the stuff that I'm still kind of scratching my head about. First of all, let's talk about that Silva betrayal arc. Look, I really wanted to love this. The setup was solid, the emotional stakes were real, and the tension leading into that update had this simmering, Lupe is about to fall from grace kind of energy. And then it just sort of ended, right? Silva and her faction get exposed. The resolution is basically, well, I guess you're all exiled now. See, it turns out the stakes weren't real after all. There's no real nuance here. There's no internal conflict, no lingering questions. Just a very clean, oddly bureaucratic wrap-up as to what could have been a much messier, more compelling, and interesting fallout. I don't know, maybe they're going to come back in part 2. Otherwise, I feel like this whole subplot went out with just a bit more of a shrug than a bang, if you will. But it's not all size and missed opportunities, because one part that I'm really loving about this story segment is this dual narrative structure. These parallel storylines, right? Bouncing back and forth between Cardathia and Tired Lupa, or is it Mia's, dark tide overrun world, and in the supposed real world with a vibrant Septimont and enthusiastic Lupa, or is it Mia? This bouncing between those two worlds is really giving me this kind of slow burn mirror universe vibe. And in fact, it really reminds me a bit of Westworld's Season 1's gimmick. And, I just absolutely love it. I think it's clever, I think it's a bit layered, and I feel like it allows us to emotionally resonate with these characters in a way that Wuthering Waves doesn't always manage to do. Mia and Lupa feel very much like echoes of each other. Yeah, pun pretty much intended. But they're each carrying their own pieces of this same tragedy. I feel like it's kind of poetic, I feel like it's punchy, and I am 100% hooked. And also, I just want to say I love Buling. Even if we don't know exactly what role she plays yet, I mean, sure, she's positioned kind of like a narrative glue character, right? Someone who knows more than she's letting on. But so far, she's just kind of orbiting the plot in this enigmatic, cool cousin with a tragic past kind of way. I've got theories, sure, but I'm fairly certain that she's about to become a lot more relevant. Obviously, of course, with her own share of secrets, dramatic reveals, and, at least one scene where she stares off into the middle distance and says something cryptic about fate. I mean, as a fellow monk and friend to Zhen, it seems like something that'd be right up her alley, right? Overall, I found this to be a solid chapter, even if some of the beats missed a bit. It feels like we're heading towards something really big, and if the writers stick the landing on this mirror world motif, I think it could be one of the most memorable arcs we've had in the game so far. Really looking forward to it. Okay, so let's talk about the new arena combat mode, or as I kind of like to call it, 8 people enter, everyone forgets their combos. In the arena fights, you and Lupa, you hit the field together, right? And you fight side by side at the same time. She's in the fray with you, shoulder to shoulder, swinging, slashing, and generally contributing more than most RPG companions do. And you add in these 2 hefty echoes that come along with you, and it's this proper 4-person squad, all on the field at one time. Except, of course, you don't control them. You're only piloting yourself. And while Lupa and the Echoes do their own thing, across the field, 4 enemies are doing the exact same thing. And this leads to what can only be described as a sort of chaotic 8-way soul rave, right? Where positioning is a myth, and half of the time you're not even sure who's hitting who. It's frantic, it's flashing, and I'm not going to lie, it's a lot of fun. But here's the thing. What this combat style does is to reveal just exactly how much of Wuthering Waves' combat complexity is tied to this one core mechanic, character swapping. You're used to building concerto energy and timing your character swaps and chaining those intros and outros into this sort of symphony of synergistic buffs and attacks. But in this combat, there's none of that. There's no swaps, there's no real big damage bursts. There's just you rolling around with your dodge roll, your basic combo tree, and then firing off your resonance liberation every once in a while when you've got the energy. And so suddenly it's really not so much a symphony as it is just, a solo. And yes, it's frenetic and punchy, but ultimately a bit repetitive. Now, I love the fact that they're experimenting with having multiple units on the field at one time. And this feels like a step towards something bigger. As I mentioned in my previous video where I speculated that they could be working towards multiplayer dungeons, this could be prep work for something like that. If this mode is going to stick around, and especially if it's going to evolve into something that's central to the core gameplay, it has to bring that complexity back. We need some way to trigger intro and natural skills in this format. And maybe there was one and I just didn't pick up on it. But if there's not, we've got to have that mechanic back. I don't know, maybe you do it through synchronized actions with your companion. Maybe you do it through echo synergy or something like that. Maybe there's a new mechanic that lets you conduct your team's actions in real time, similar to how Tales of Arise does it. All I can say with certainty is that right now the bones are there, but it's just sort of missing this connective tissue that gives wuwa combat its actual combat depth. Because honestly, if I wanted to spam light attacks occasionally and dodge roll through all my trauma, I could just go play Genshin, right? I'm mostly kidding. Okay, finally, I want to touch on something that's become a part of just about every Wuthering Waves story update. And this is the point where Kuro Games decides to take your carefully curated team that you've spent weeks building and promptly ignores it. I mean, you've spent hours, weeks even, right, crafting this perfect squad. You've theory crafted, you've pulled on the banners, grinded for resources like some kind of caffeinated loot goblin, and you've built this team with synergy, and more importantly, you've learned how to play this team together. And yes, I get that you can play those teams in all of the in-game content, but for me, the story is just as important, and I want to be able to play the teams that I put together in that content. Like, for instance, in this case, I brought Rover, Shorekeeper, and Zanny to Septimont because I wanted that team to walk with me into this major story moment. I mean, it made sense to me, right? Rover is there because, duh, player character. Zanny needs a vacation, and Shorekeeper is there because, let's face it, she goes everywhere that Rover goes. It just felt right. But from the time I set foot on Septimont until I won the finals, poor Zanny and Shorekeeper never even saw the light of day. Hero just benches them, and I get a story version of the Rover and Lupa. And yeah, I get it. Lupa needs to be there for the story, and so does Rover. But you can just add Lupa to my existing team. They've done that before. And you can replace Rover during the cinematics if you didn't put her on your team. They already do this in other parts of the game, so they're able to do it. And it's bad enough in the regular encounters, but the boss fights? I'm sorry, but nothing says immersive narrative experience like being handed a character that you've never played, along with a 2-panel slideshow tutorial that no one wants to read. You want me to learn a new kit on the fly, mid-battle, with the fate of the universe hanging in the balance? If you want me to play this character in the final battle, then give me some more opportunities in the story segments to play her and get familiar with her kit, not by reading a tutorial panel at literally the beginning of the fight. So, as a result of this, while Cardathea is, of course, amazing, I felt like I had no idea what I was doing with her, and honestly, I'm not even sure I could die. I spent a good portion of the battle at 0 hit points, but was allowed to just soldier on until Arenosa the giant lion centaur was dead at my feet. And while, of course, cinematically it was absolutely amazing, from a combat mechanic standpoint, I felt like I just flailed my way through it. And the fact that I succeeded while flailing my way through it made it even less gratifying. Whereas if I'd been able to put a team together that I knew how to play, I would have felt both challenged and connected to the moment. Look, Honkai Star Rail has this figured out. They trust you to bring your own team, to know your strengths, if you will, to be invested in your build. They will add a trial character as necessary for story moments, but they rarely override your whole squad like a narrative sledgehammer. And the boss fights, they're actual challenges. I remember having to do several different attempts at some of the bosses in his stories. If you come unprepared, you're going to know it. Wuthering Waves can definitely do this, and it can do so with mechanics it's already demonstrated. Right now, it feels like most of the combat is a series of cutscenes where I'm occasionally asked to mash buttons to get through to the next cutscene. Let us use the teams we built. Let our characters be part of the story we're telling. I mean, we all have Rover, right? Why does it always have to be their Rover instead of the one that I built? Let us put together our own teams and play the game with the teams that we've built. Okay, so where does that leave us? Well, actually, overall, I thoroughly enjoyed the 2.4 story update. The narrative continues to deepen in ways that genuinely surprise me, and the changes they made to the arena combat, I think, show real promise. They just need to suss out that complexity bit. I'm actually very interested to see where Kuro takes us next. I do wish they'd architect these story sequences with a little bit more respect for the player's investment in terms of time, resources, and the teams that we've built. I just feel like that would make me enjoy the stories a great deal more. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. If you've enjoyed this breakdown, then please be sure and hit the like, subscribe, I don't know, maybe even whisper sweet nothings to that notification bell. And until next time, whatever it is that you're playing, play hard. Cheers!